What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of TGI's Party Chat. I'm your host, Matt Southwell, and joining me this week, as nearly always, Dan Gilbert.
You alright, Matt?
Yeah, good, and you?
Yeah.
Good stuff. So, obviously, we normally have a third person here. Ash decided that he wanted to go on holiday rather than join us, which was...
And we weren't invited either.
No, not even asked. Very, very rude. And unfortunately, I couldn't get anyone else, so the viewers will just have to sacrifice the quantity in order to have greater quality. So, really, it's for the best for you, to be honest. Ash only brings us down. It's fine, he's not going to watch this. But yeah, anyway, very quickly before we start, anyone that is not familiar with Party Chat, it is a talk show where three friends normally, in this case two, chat every Wednesday. It can be any particular topic in the video game industry. It can be something that is maybe kind of current affairs, or maybe it's just something that we've thought about for a long time and we want to discuss. Again, it was Ash's topic, but he now negates that pick, and it's back to me. And Dan, I read this article about a month ago talking about console sales in Japan and how they had hit a 24 low, 10% decrease year over year, and not anything since the 90s. And I thought, Japan has always been what I would kind of almost consider the kind of
trendsetter,
the kind of spiritual leader of video games. You know, that's where they really came big in the 90s, and well, even before that. And Japan's always been, you know, they're huge for video games. So to see a drop, it makes me want to ask, what do you think is the future of video game consoles as a whole, and video games? Where do you see it going for the next generation and then beyond?
Well, obviously we've got the generation that's already in play, and they're saying roughly 10-year life cycle is expected out of this generation.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Give or take.
I think that's fair.
I see it continuing as long as the companies want to build these consoles. They're obviously proving to be popular.
Yeah, these are like, well, the PlayStation 4 is kind of record sales.
Exactly. So, and as games get better in terms of their quality and so on, I can't see people turning away from that.
No.
And so on. So I feel it's very much going to follow a philosophy of, as long as they build it, people will come. Now, whether that's Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Sega, if they ever tried to resurrect that part of them,
I think it's safe to say they're long gone.
Which is pretty much none and void, or any of the independent ones.
I think we've got more chance of seeing Apple jumping into the video game market than we see Sega coming back.
But any one of those, if they prove there's quality there, people will buy it.
I think that's
because people enjoy their games, and as long as there's that market out there, someone's going to tap it.
I think so. I mean, obviously, this generation, like you said, is doing incredibly well, like really, really well. And we had the last generation, we had the Wii, which was incredibly successful. Okay, it didn't have a great attach rate because everyone just bought it for Wii Sports, but you have the consoles now, and they're really, really strong. I think this particular article is maybe setting towards maybe where the Japanese market wants to go. But obviously, the Japanese market and the Western market are two separate areas. My only concern is the rise in mobile games. Now, and kind of not handheld as in like Vita and 3DS, but like kind of mobile phones, Android,
so
iOS.
Phones and tablets, basically.
Yeah. I mean, there are some good games on those devices. They're not all cheap and bad, but a lot of them are... They're easy to digest for people, and you know, everyone has a smartphone now, and everyone has not everyone has a tablet, but everyone has a smartphone.
Everyone has one of those two, pretty much.
Exactly, and the install base is there for these companies. So, like, you talk about people like Sony and Microsoft, but obviously, from a developer's point of view, you can either make a PS4 game, which is, you know, what are we at now? 16 million at the moment. And then, or you can tap into the iOS market, which has billion, probably not far off. So it's difficult. You can understand why you would want to be making mobile games right now, and I just feel as more and more people, eventually there will come a time where basically everyone, literally everyone, will have a smartphone device, I believe. And that's my concern, is that there'll be so much there that everyone will just be going to that market because that's where the most money is. On the flip side, I hope that's not right, because I really want consoles to continue. I don't think you can get a better experience for gaming than on a console. I'm sure there's some PC gamers that would disagree.
Well, this is what I was going to sort of like bring up. Like, when sort of like video games and so on were starting, you basically either went to the arcade and you played them there, or if you were lucky, you could maybe have some form of home computer to play them on. Then the consoles came out.
Yeah, obviously, the 90s was the
like in terms of culture, you're talking computer games were for the nerdy people to begin with. A lot more than like what's considered now. Then you started getting into the console generation, and you had a lot more mainstream kind of games and so on that a lot more people started to play. And that's still the case, but the mobile market is bringing in more of what I guess we would call the casual gamer and so on. So you got to look at it there, and it's like, yes, there's money in mobile gaming for those people who literally want something to do on the bus, on the train, or whatever, like to and from work during lunchtime, those sort of things. But what we consider the, I guess, normal, like mainstream, I guess maybe
the best,
like that's your consoles, that's your PC.
Yeah,
and I think those two markets are still separate at the moment because of the type of games that are on there.
They are, but obviously now, mobile phones will get...
Yeah, as that develops, then things might start changing. But as that develops, it might all merge into one.
Yeah,
which is a different kind of thing. That's technology that you can't yet predict.
No, I mean, like, no one would have predicted...
If you look at everything as separate entities as they are now, a phone cannot give you what a console is giving you.
Yeah.
And as long as that gap exists, then you're not going to see that sort of thing merge.
No, I hope so. I mean, realistically, this is basically... I can't predict anything that's going to happen next week, let alone 10, 20 years. But if I had to say where I think the next generation will go, I believe we will definitely have another console, kind of home console generation. That's without a doubt, based on the strength of these. There's obviously still a lot of people, if anything, more people who want that home console experience. Now, I don't think that they will come with disc drive. We've already seen the start here, pushing towards the always online components, the digital stores, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, kind of those things have really built up over the last few years. And I think you will go one step further in the next one, and they'll be like, look, this is digital now. I think the only reason why it probably hasn't happened yet is because not everyone has the internet capabilities. We've touched on that before, so I won't go into it. But also that they almost need to appease the retailers, because those retailers are needed to sell your consoles as well.
Yeah.
And if you say, right, we only want you to sell the consoles, but we're not going to give you any games to sell, that's obviously a huge market for those retailers, which might end up kind of having to close, and then they have nowhere to sell the consoles.
Yeah.
Whether or not we'll see another console generation after that remains to be seen. We've obviously got things like PlayStation Now kind of testing the waters. Does that take off? If it does, great for the consumer in theory. I mean, you look at like kind of things like Netflix, like subscription-based video.
Well, this is the thing
that is maybe where it goes, but you need really good internet, and the problem is no matter how good your internet is, there will always be latency.
Mm-hmm.
Latency doesn't matter in a video like a film, because you're not interacting with it. Latency is a big deal when you're playing video games, especially kind of if you're playing it at the professional level like we do. So and that's, I think, the limitation there. Whether they can ever make a way to reduce that latency to... It will always be there, but if they can reduce it to like kind of single-digit milliseconds, then it's maybe bearable.
Well, that's the one thing that sort of like popped into my head while we were talking about this, is like you talk about like the rise of smart TVs and everything, where all of that's built in already, and you're already saying like PlayStation Now and...
Yeah, well, PlayStation Now comes with Sony TVs.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe in the future they merge it into all one product, so it's PlayStation capable. Doesn't mean you have to use it.
Yeah.
But it's something that's in there.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't used PlayStation Now yet. I used something called OnLive a few years ago.
Yeah.
And that was terrible. I mean, it might have been mainly my internet, but the graphics looked horrendous.
Yeah. But I don't see anything like that becoming mainstream until there is solid internet coverage over a large area.
Yeah.
Because like for you, for me and so on at the moment, we're not going to go out and get something like that because we're going to look at it and go, well, our internet can't support it.
No.
As it stands.
Yeah, I think that's...
Which is where having an actual console or something like that has the advantage, because it's just like, it doesn't need the internet necessarily to run this, so therefore it doesn't matter how fast my internet is, it's not affecting the game.
Yeah, well, unless you need a day one update, but there's that is the only thing is that's another topic. Yeah. One thing you can never underestimate though is the development of technology.
Exactly.
And the amount we've come in just 10 years makes me think that I like to think in 10 years' time, everyone or the sheer majority of people would have internet capabilities to be able to play kind of like these PlayStation Now. And like, I suppose it's kind of not necessarily an answer everyone wants to hear, but then when it becomes the fact of maybe the minority don't have the internet capability, well, they'll still have all of these previous consoles that they can still go back and play on.
Yeah.
You know, there's a big back catalogue. I mean, they can still be a generation behind, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there now that are generations behind and they don't really care that much.
Well, judging on the number of sales of PS2s over time, I dare say there's a lot of people still using them, so yeah.
I know. So basically, summing up, we think, provided people want to keep making them, they will still continue to come, because even though it's declining in Japan, it's still, obviously this generation shows there is still a huge demand for it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to worry too much about those pesky mobile games. No one else needs to keep telling me to play Clash of Clans or whatever it's called.
No, despite the constant adverts and so on for it.
Well, that was another thing actually, just very, very quickly, almost, the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
From what I've heard from people talking, there was no adverts for video games of normal PS4, PlayStation, Xbox, but there were a couple of adverts for like mobile games. So like they're really pushing them down.
That's because nothing else was out during
true.
Super Bowl time. That's the problem.
Well, Dying Light was out,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, I think you're right on what you said, that the two markets will continue to coexist whilst there's still a demand for it, and hopefully, long may it continue. If I'm sure the CEOs of Microsoft and Sony are watching this, so please don't take away our consoles anytime. You know, you can't beat the controller interaction with a video game.
No,
none of that touchscreen rubbish. Too annoying. But there we go. That's pretty much our opinions of where we think the future of games are going, or video consoles are going. Please let us know in the comments down below what you guys think, because I'm sure there's many different opinions on this topic, and we could go into all of them, but you will have all switched off before we get to the end. You might have even switched off now. I might not be watching this. I might just be speaking to a room. But
if you have made it this far, we thank you.
Yes, you are the chosen one. We appreciate it. And please do, if you are still watching, if you have enjoyed it as well, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. But for now, Dan,
Cheers, man.
Thank you. And everyone out there, we will see you next Wednesday.